we are the people who started really a global revolution in farming to regenerate all of agriculture, because at the moment, industrial agriculture is an existential threat to our planet. It is responsible for most of the clearing of ecosystems. The chemicals used in industrial agriculture pervade our whole planet now, and many of them are disrupting hormones and stopping reproduction. We also know that these small amounts of chemicals in our food are the main cause of the global epidemic of non-contagious chronic diseases like cancer, like heart disease, like diabetes. We have the science. So we have to regenerate agriculture. We have to change it. And this is what we have started. And it is a revolution. It was a few of us. We were leaders of the organic industry, agroecology, holistic management, natural health. And we came together in 2014 and we formed Regeneration International. And in 2023 we had 533 partners in 74 countries. I checked today, we're over 550 in 75 countries now. We're growing that rapidly. So let's talk about the basis of how we regenerate agriculture. And we need to go back to the most important process of life on the planet, photosynthesis. And what is happening in plants? What we see is we get solar energy from the sun, and in the leaves we combine carbon dioxide, that's the main greenhouse gas, with water, and it produces glucose. And glucose is the basic molecule of life. 98% of what you see in plants are made of glucose. That wood is made of glucose. But glucose is also our energy source, our proteins, our hormones. It's the basic molecule. And when plants grow, about 30% of these organic compounds the plants bring down to their roots and they feed the soil microbiome. This is the area of the greatest biodiversity on our planet. And this microbiome is the one that does the work to get the minerals that are locked up in the soils and make them available to plants rather than buying expensive fertilizers. You can see here, these are the exudates from the roots. These are these compounds made from glucose, and they feed this very important ecosystem that builds soil health and builds fertility. And this is how we do it. This is our farm, my wife and I, our organic tropical fruit farm. And over our monsoon season, we grow these cover crops. These are, you have all the same plants here in Vietnam, tropical grasses and tropical legumes. And I put my tractor in there so you can see it is more than 3 meters high. That's an enormous amount of fertility. And what you see there is that 30% of those products, that photosynthesis over the wet season, goes into the soil to feed the soil microbiome, to build soil fertility. And this is our place in the dry season when we have either grazed down or cut down the cover crop. And what we did in 11 years, we increased our soil organic matter, which is the organic carbon, from less than 1% to 6%. And we increased all our minerals. You have a look, calcium, 500 to 3,696 parts per million. Magnesium from 101 to 391. Phosphorus from 123 to 1,500. We didn't buy them. The biology did that because we fed the biology with the products of photosynthesis. It saves us thousands and thousands of dollars, and it's better for the environment. This is another example of it. This is what we call pasture cropping. Instead of ploughing up all the plants as weeds or spraying them out, we can cut them back in the right way, and usually through grazing, but we can mow it, and then we can plant in it. In this case, it's oats. But Peter Randall here does it with rice very successfully. And I wish you had a chance to explain to everybody how to use this system for organic rice. What is really important here is this. This farmer does not have to buy thousands of dollars of fertilizers and thousands of dollars of pesticides. The cost is so much less. It's not spending a lot of time and money ploughing up, so the cost of production is a fraction of the normal cost of production, but his yield is exactly the same as his neighbours. So he gets the same yield, less cost, but really importantly, after he takes the crop off, see the green there? That's pasture. He puts his sheep back on, so he gets 2 incomes, not 1, at less cost. And this is work here done by one of our really good soil scientists, Dr. Christine Jones. And you can see the difference here between, this is the farm I showed you, this is the farm next door. These people are brothers. They inherited their farm from their father and put a fence through the middle. And this is the normal industrial agriculture. You can see a little bit of carbon there, soil organic matter, but have a look at this. It's deep and rich in carbon. That's all the glucose compounds that have come into the soil to build fertility. And look at the increases. Calcium, 177, magnesium, 38, phosphorus, 49, nitrogen, 40%, and so on. He didn't buy any of these. The biology, this management system, made them available. So he saves thousands of dollars. He has increased his fertility, he's lowered his costs, and he's doubled his yields. This is what makes a profitable farmer and improves the environment. All that carbon you see there, that dark carbon, that is soil organic matter. And by doing that, we increase our ability to capture and hold water. And this is very important now, because in farming, because of the changing climate, we have longer droughts, they are more severe, and when the rain comes at the wrong time, and it's usually very heavy and destructive. By increasing our soil organic matter, our soil carbon, we can increase our water content. Now, in Vietnam, and our country, Australia, and most of Africa, our levels are usually less than 1%. If you just got 1%, you can capture 160,000 litres in the first 30 centimetres of the soil per hectare. Any more rain just runs away, usually runs away with the soil into the creek. But if you get up to 6%, I showed you in our farm, we went from less than 1%, we went from the 0.5% to 6% in 11 years. And we know people have done it even better than we have. So I'm trying to say this is doable. It is not academic. This is evidence-based. But here, that's 960,000 litres for 6%, just under 1 million litres. We call it a megalitre. You can track a megalitre of water per hectare. Where? In the root zone. You don't need to build big megalitre dams and irrigation channels or anything. We can capture that rain, even though it's come at the wrong time of year, and we can store it. so that when we go into drought, we have drought-proofed. And this is a really important, this is actually 1992, but now they have 40 years of this experiment. And what they've shown in drought years, the organic system, because we've got the soil organic matter, we have the higher yields than the industrial system because they don't have the soil organic matter. And 40 years of research shows consistently that in drought years, organic gets more than 30% higher yields. This is really important. I want to get rid of this notion that organic is lower yielding. With the right organic systems, we're equal, and very importantly, in climate extremes, higher yields. In fact, when you look at an experiment over 20, 30, 40 years, organic is higher because in the bad seasons, we get the higher yield, and we're getting more and more bad seasons. This is really important for us to have resilient systems as we go into climate change, because it's only going to get worse. So let's look at some of the other systems. Here we look at grazing, and grazing at the moment is one of the major forms of land degradation in the way it is done. But with our regenerative forms, we can regenerate these ecosystems so we can go from these bare soils and start bringing back biodiversity. And I want to show you this bottom one. This is 2002 in Zimbabwe. This is Alan Savory took this over, and 200 cattle were degrading it. He changed the way he managed. He didn't get rid of the cattle. He didn't destock. He changed the way he managed. And you can see the difference in 2006, in 3 years, the difference he's done. And this jeweler and I, we were here exactly a year ago in Zimbabwe, and this is what it looks like last year. You can see he's regenerated the ecosystem, all the tall grasses. You've got this beautiful mosaic of vegetation, incredible biodiversity. He's now has 400 cattle, but wants to get 200 more to manage the grass, so he's going to get 3 times the production. Plus, he's got all the native animals in there. We saw impalas and other types of deers and baboons, and he has a herd of elephants living there as well. So what I'm trying to say here, we can regenerate our farming systems. We can increase our yield, increase biodiversity. It isn't either or. We can do both. The other one I want to show here is how we can use these plants use photosynthesis, use plants for pest control instead of using pesticides. Because most insects have host plants. And if you have a look here, these are what we call the parasitic wasps. And they are also pollinators, just like bees. They need nectar and honey to become sexually mature. Without it, they can't lay eggs. Okay. So what happens here, by putting in these sort of plants, we can bring in these insects, and what they do is they lay their eggs on the pest, and that way their larvae control the pests. We can get pest control without using synthetic or any pesticides, actually. And what we can now do is change our farming systems and introduce these host plants. This is our farm, a rambutan farm in the tropics. And a lot of these plants, like Singapore daisy and pinto peanut, you have here. But what we're doing now is we're using the sunlight that our cash crop isn't using. It's falling on the ground now for ecosystem services. This sunlight now is powering all these plants that are giving us pest control. They're also putting all that glucose into the soil. They're giving us nitrogen. They're shading the soil and keeping it cool. This is an example of how we apply it. This is what we call push-pull, and it can be used in rice, corn. This is corn here. And instead of getting rid of all plants as weeds, we start bringing in the right ones. So this is Desmodium. This is a tropical one that you have here in Vietnam. And what it does, it repels the pests. And on the side, we plant what's called a trap crop. This is a grass called Napier grass. And the pest will go there, lay its eggs there. When they hatch, the plant has a defense. A lot of these plants are itchy. That's silica hairs. It cuts up the caterpillars, kills them, breaks the cycle. Similarly, these plants put out compounds that cause the suicidal germination of weed seeds. And this is a whole area of science now where you can add these plants to control bad weeds. And this is an example here. This is corn using the Desmodium. So instead of having bare ground, have Desmodium. This is a traditional system here where they started with bare ground. The weeds come up. This weed is parasitic, and then you've got the corn borers. So they had very low yields. We do this, the yields increase by 10 times. The system here now is applied in chilies, mangoes. We can do it in any system, rice, fruit trees, vegetables, and get high yields at very low costs. And lastly, I want to end on, I've just got 2 more slides. So we have new composting systems. And these are very easy. You don't have to turn them. They can be done at any style. I want to show you this. It's just a little bit of weld mesh shade cloth. Can be done on any size farm. So any smallholder farm can do this very easily at low cost. You've got a big farm, you just make it bigger. It's simple. But this compost, because it's very high in biodiversity, increases the yield. So that's the standard one with using synthetic nitrogen, urea, with cotton. This is what happens when you put the compost on. No fertilizer, just this compost, and you get 3 times the yield. These are the sorts of simple technologies we can use now to make farming cheaper. It costs nothing. It costs nothing to make this. And more efficient. And lastly, I want to end on these slides. This is SRI, where we can dramatically increase the yields. It's unfortunate that political pressure has stopped this research in Vietnam, but this is a slide from Vietnam showing here in Hanoi, showing after a typhoon that the SRI is far more resilient than the normal industrial rice or normal paddy rice. And we need to get this research started again, because we can get an average of 7 tons, 10 tons without too much trouble organically with this system. And my last slide is this one. Because in Vietnam and most of the world, the majority of farms are less than 2 hectares. This farm is actually less than 1 hectare. And they're doing what we call no-till, no-kill. They're not ploughing up, they're not digging up, they're planting in compost and mulch, and they get very high yields. They employ 8 people because of the amount that they produce, and they make $200,000 US per acre. $400,000 US. And the reason I want to show this is because this is something that can be done in Vietnam, done very well. This farm originally had 40 acres, but they realized that 2 acres done very, very intensively this way earns more money. And to me, these are the future of agriculture, and it shows that we have a very good future by adopting these appropriate technologies. So thank you. Come on.